I'm gonna need a ladder for this one. Hey creeps, it's Cameron and welcome back to Library Macabre, where I talk about books, movies, writing, and all things spooky. And today we're here to talk about something not exactly spooky. We are going to be taking a look at my Leatherbound book collection. I do have a couple of Leatherbound books that are horror, but for the most part they're just random classics. I just love books. It doesn't matter what they are. So we are going to be taking a look at these beautiful books right up here, right after this. Before we look at the Leatherbound books that I have on that top shelf, I am going to take a look at some of the others that I have. I do have some on up here, so I'm gonna monkey on up this chair and we're gonna take a look. I have a couple of Barnes & Noble Leatherbound books up here on this top shelf. So I have my Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles book that I keep with my other Anne Rice books. Next, I have my Stephen King books over here. I do have a big bookshelf tour going over all of my Stephen King books if you wanna take a look at that. But one of my Stephen King books happens to be a Barnes & Noble Leatherbound. This one is The Stand. Nice, big, chunky book. I would say that the quality of the Barnes & Noble books has gone down a little bit over the years, but they're still nice, affordable books overall. Now we're gonna move on over to my Nancy Drew collection. And I do have one Leatherbound Nancy Drew book. And that is The Secret of the Old Clock, the first book in the Nancy Drew series by Carolyn Keene. In the early 90s, Applewood Books was putting out a lot of the original text of Nancy Drew books. And this was one of the really special editions that they put out. I think there was only about 250 copies or something. I may be wrong about that. This is extremely rare now. Like, I got this years ago on eBay for about $75. And since then, I haven't even seen another copy of this go for sale on eBay. So I don't know how much this is worth now, but I imagine it's quite a bit. Coming over to my other mysteries, and please ignore the empty shelves. I just built those. I still have to put books on them. But we have my Agatha Christie mystery collection. These are not genuine leather. I think like the Barnes & Noble books, these are bonded leather, but I have quite a few of them. They're nice uniform books. They look nice on the shelf together. So we have the Murder at the Vicarage, Come Tell Me How You Live, which is, I think, an autobiography, A Holiday for Murder, and The Mirror Cracked. And coming over here to my desk, I do have another Barnes & Noble Leatherbound book, and that is my Complete Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. All right, now we're moving on up to the top shelf. Most of my books up here are Barnes & Noble Leatherbound classics, and then I also have a few Easton Press books mixed in. Barnes & Noble books are bonded leather. They're not actually genuine leather like the Easton Press books, but I still really like these books. I think for the price, these books are just gorgeous. But this one is called The Wild by Jack London, The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood by Howard Pyle, The Story of King Arthur and His Knights, also by Howard Pyle, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I should also be showing you guys the spine and the backs of these. These are so pretty. And we also have The Swiss Family Robinson by Joanne David Weiss. I really like the design of this one. Next, we have the Scarlet Pimpernel. And this is not a Barnes & Noble or Easton Press book. This is from some publisher. Can't remember what they're called. It says DP on the spine. But this is a really, really cheap bonded leatherbound book. Like, you can even see on the cover, it's like tarnished. And this isn't a very old book at all. I got this, I don't know, a couple years ago. But man, very bad quality. I have one other book like this, but I do not like them. Next we have Silver on the Tree, which is by Susan Cooper. This is the 5th book in the Dark is Rising sequence. There's a whole set of these, but I've only managed to find this one right here. Next we have this amazing edition of Dune by Frank Herbert. Look at the spine on that. That is awesome. The back cover, oh my gosh, look at that. I think that's my favorite edition of Dune, even above the Easton Press and the Folio Society versions. That's still my favorite. Here we have Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales, and I say complete with quotations because this isn't necessarily complete. It doesn't even have the original text of most of the stories, but it's still a really nice addition to have. Tarzan of the Apes by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Another awesome book. I love the color scheme with the teal and the gold accents. Very, very nice. That lion on the spine just really pops. And then this includes Tarzan of the Apes, The Return of Tarzan, and The Beasts of Tarzan. Another book by Edgar Rice Burroughs, we have John Carter of Mars. So cool looking, man. Look at that. Oh, so nice. This includes The Princess of Mars, The Gods of Mars, The Warlord of Mars, Thuvia, Maid of Mars, and The Chessmen of Mars. H.P. Lovecraft, The Complete Fiction, and again, I use quotations around complete because I've heard that there are quite a few missing stories in this book. But overall, not a bad book. A Wrinkle in Time trilogy. There are actually more than 3 books in the series, but this only includes the first 3, which are A Wrinkle in Time, A Wind in the Door, and Swiftly Tilting Planet. So as you can tell, we are pretty much in my science fiction section now. So I have my Star Wars trilogy. This is the C-3PO version. There's a few other versions. I think there's a Darth Vader and an R2-D2, but I really like this one. I also have the Star Wars Han Solo trilogy. The back cover of this one's really nice. Look at that. Next is Star Trek, the classic episodes. My 2 Doctor Who books, which I believe are out of print now. This one includes The Silent Stars Go By and Touched by an Angel. Got the TARDIS on the back. And this one includes Remembrance of the Daleks and Prisoner of the Daleks. I like Doctor Who a lot, but I gotta say, the Daleks are kind of overused. I don't know if that's controversial to say or not, but I just don't care for them so much. I am really excited to read this one, though. I haven't gotten a chance to, but soon I will. The Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This includes all 5 novels and 1 story. I can't remember if this one is still in print or not. I have a feeling that maybe it went out of print and then they brought it back. The Divine Comedy by Dante. This is the 2nd edition, but I much prefer this one over the 1st edition. The first one had a sticker on the cover, but this one's a lot classier, I think. Wicked and Son of a Witch by Gregory Maguire. Very beautiful book. Look at the back. Oh man, that is sexy. Les Morts d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. Another very classy book. Look at that crest on the back, so nice. Aesop's Illustrated Fables. Very intricate design on the cover and the spine. And the back cover. Slow and Steady Wins the Race. I bet you haven't heard that one before. The Arabian Nights. Now, I've heard over the years that people who have bought this book said that the gilding would rub off on your fingers. I have never had that issue before. So this is a later printing, so maybe they ended up fixing that later on. Here we have Tales of Norse Mythology. Eye of the World, book 1 in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I have not read this series before. Honestly, it's a little bit intimidating because the books are so big and there are so many of them. This one's not too thick. This one's manageable, so I would like to read this soon, but I know I'm just not in the mood to get sucked into a big series right now. Neil Gaiman's American Gods and Anansi Boys. This is the 1st edition, 1st printing. There is another edition of this out now that looks a little bit different, but I think they're both equally nice. Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. A very simple design, but very elegant at the same time. Very thick book. Look at that. And I'm just noticing for these thicker books, the pages tend to sag because there's so much weight being put on the binding of the book. So the text block just kind of sags down and it puts a lot of stress on the binding. A good trick for this is to just get some toilet paper or tissue, roll it up a little bit and stick it between the boards right underneath the pages. It helps to kind of boost up the pages and gives a little more support to the spine. It doesn't put so much stress on the binding. So I need to do that for this book. I didn't realize it was sagging so much. Jane Austen, 7 novels. This is a humongous book given to me by a friend. Honestly, I am planning on reading some Jane Austen. I never have, but I definitely want to. I don't think I would be reading them out of this book though, because this is just way too big and bulky and heavy. Here we have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, as well as the collected poems. This is a newer book. So nice. One of my favorite new editions from Barnes & Noble. Now we're getting into the corner, so this is going to be a little awkward. We have The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. And this includes 3 books total. We have Murder on the Orient Express, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and Curtin Poirot's Last Case. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but I'm from Ohio. It's the best I can do. Here we have And Then There Were None and Other Classic Mysteries, also by Agatha Christie. And Then There Were None is one of my favorite books of all time. This also includes Crooked House and Endless Night. I've not read either of those before. And then lastly, for the Agatha Christie books, we have Death on the Nile, which also has 2 other books included, ABC Murders and 5 Little Pigs. These are really nice books, but this one, for some reason, has this very rubbery texture when these don't. These are actually kind of matte finished. This one is super glossy and kind of sticky, and that tends to make the black on the cover rub off. It's something I have to be careful with. And I also have back here in the corner The Phantom of the Opera and Other Gothic Tales. Super beautiful book. Where the Sidewalk Ends and Everything on It by Shel Silverstein, one of my favorite poets ever. There's Edgar Allan Poe, and then there's Shel Silverstein, 2 of my faves. We also have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Other Illustrated Classics by Roald Dahl. This includes Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, which is my favorite, and Fantastic Mr. Fox. Next is the latest edition of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and The Marvelous Land of Oz by L. Frank Baum. I think this is my favorite version of Oz that they have done so far. Just a big, beautiful book, completely illustrated, full color all the way through. Just so nice, and I hope that they do the rest of the series in these editions. The Complete Tales of Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Another very cute book. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is another one of those DP editions. Again, we've got that had a tarnished look on the cover. These are so cheap. Next are my Easton Press books. I have Last of the Mohicans. I remember reading this in 5th grade, might have been 4th grade. I think it was a little too early because I did not take in very much of that. Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And my very first Easton Press book, Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. And those are all of the Easton Press books I have. I need to get more. They're a little expensive. I also have one more Barnes & Noble Leatherbound. This is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is the original edition that is actually hardcover. They ended up going back and reprinting all of these smaller editions in these kind of like leather cloth editions that I don't like those very much. I much prefer the regular hardcover edition, so I'm glad I have that. And then one more thing, I also have this George R.R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire box set. Has Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, and Dance with Dragons. This is like a leather cloth, very flimsy, but it's a nice little set. I still like it. And these are just some other books that I thought looked nice up here with the Leatherbounds. So there you have it, creeps. Those are all of my Leatherbound books that I have in my library. If you want to see more bookshelf tours, you can access a playlist right up here where you can binge all of them. I've got a bunch of parts. It's going to take you a while, so get a snack, get comfy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you in the next episode of Library Macabre. Later, creeps.